and always to you are King. Bless and let there be love in our home, the marriage experience ordained by you alone. The marriage experience. Experience ordained by you alone.
Welcome to the Marriage Experience program with Ayokunle and Bosede Santos, where they explore what it means to cultivate a God-centric marriage, delivering realistic and biblical wisdom, pointers and insights from couples and individuals on the marriage journey. Join them today as they continue the conversation around before the marriage covenant. Enjoy.
Hello and welcome to episode 26 of the Marriage Experience program.
Yes, indeed. It's a brand new week, and as always, we're so delighted to be with you.
Yes, sure. Now, last week we looked at how personalities show up in men and women and how couples can better understand themselves and be more empathetic towards one another by understanding the differences that we have in personalities. We defined empathy as understanding why, and quoting here what we said last week, was why what people did made sense to them at that time. In other words, putting yourself in their situation, not just understanding what they did, but why they did and why it made sense to them. Now, we also stated that God made male and female essentially the same in attitudes and behaviors. Basically cutting them out of himself just to be like himself. We often shared something interesting, that when it came to time for God to bring woman into being, he didn't form her from the ground like he did the man, but he removed her from the man's rib. That was an act which denoted what would become the peculiarity of womanhood.
So today we'll be looking at a couple of personality types from the MBTI. Remember, we talked about, we introduced the MBTI, I think a couple of weeks ago. And the MBTI has its roots in the philosophy of Carl Jung, to at least, so that we can at least recognize the functionality of these personality types. Remember that the MBTI personality types identify people's natural preferences in 4 areas of personality, which is how people direct and receive energy, whether they're extroverted or introverted, whether they focus on the outside world, interacting with people and taking action, or they focus on their own inner world and reflect on ideas, memories, and experiences. Or the second being how they take in information. Are they sensing or intuitive? Maybe they focus on what they perceive using their 5 senses, or by seeing the big picture and looking for relationships and patterns. Or do they decide how they decide rather and come to conclusions? Are they thinking or feeling? Are they, do they analyze in a logical way situations, or do they consider what's important to the people who are involved in a certain situation? And also, lastly, how they approach or deal with the outside world. Are they judging or are they perceiving? Do they function in a planned, orderly way, or are they more flexible and spontaneous in their
ways?
In their ways, yes.
Yeah, so as we constantly reiterate, now there is no right or wrong way to these preferences. Now we've shared so many there's quite a bit of information that we've shared with you concerning the different types. Now that would tend to get one beginning to think and wonder, okay, so what should I be? Well, you should be who God has made you, because you are unique in your ways. Each one of us is normal and we have this valuable human behavior. We only need to understand the peculiarities that we have to enable us treat one another with regard, not just the peculiarities that we have, but the peculiarities that our spouses have.
Or of even these personality types, understanding the peculiarities of these personality types, would enable us to, better relate with them.
Yes.
Those who have those kind of personality types.
Right. So we'll be looking at a couple of personality traits to enable us to get to know them better. What we're implying here is self-awareness. Self-awareness, that is one of the most important things when you're talking about marriage. Being able to understand and be aware of the effect that you're having on other people, person. Particularly, the person who you relate to on a very regular basis. This is important because when people function from a place of strength, doing the things that excite and appeal to them, they are energized and they've got a better chance at fulfilling potential. So if you could just picture it, if you're a square person, well, if you understand what I mean here, if you're a square peg, you will fit into a round hole. That won't work.
No.
And it doesn't matter how well. I guess one might say, well, it's possible if you hit hard enough and keep shaving on the edges. But no, if you're square, if you're a square peg, then you will fit in a square hole better. Now, research shows that people with increased self-awareness feel more confident and tend to make better decisions and make better use of their strengths. It's because they actually fit into the holes that they've been designed for. When you are self-aware, when you understand who you are, then it makes you function so much better rather than trying to be something else or someone else. It's just like what you have with, we've all been young and, we've had to endure peer pressure, and that's exactly what it is. Who you are is the best that you can ever be, rather than trying to be somebody else that you expect them to expect you to be.
Someone said that everyone else taken, just so why not just be yourself?
Be yourself. I mean, there's no point in trying to be like somebody else. So it's the same way. If couples are both self-aware and understand each other's personalities, like we mentioned last week, they know, number one, why they each behave the way they do.
They'll be empathetic towards each other.
They will be empathetic. Once you know the why, and then they would also know what each one of them needs to do differently to improve the situation, because once you have the understanding of the root of what is going on, then you know what to begin to do to address the situation that you need to address. And you'd also know why the other behaves the way they do. So it's knowing yourself, knowing how to handle the situation,
and knowing the other person,
why they behave the way they do, because then that closes the loop and you know exactly how to handle the situation.
So to reiterate, having mentioned on a previous episode the 4 categories of personality types, which consist of the 16 distinct MBTI personality types, are the analyst, which consists of architects, logician, commander, debater. So this is not talking about
the profession, no.
It's just the
way things are done.
It's just the way that they do things, and so they've just put them into these categories. And then there are the diplomats, who are also the 4 broad categories of diplomats are advocates, mediators, protagonists, and campaigners. And then you have the sentinels, which are logisticians, defenders, executive counsel. And then you have the explorers, who are virtuoso, adventurer, and entrepreneurs, and entertainers. So talking about being self-aware, Johann Wolfgang von Goethe said, treat people as if they were what they ought to be, and you help them to become what they are capable of being.
I love that. Can you just repeat
It
that?
says, treat people as if they were what they ought to be, and you help them to become what they are capable of being.
Very true.
In other words, if you, I mean, let's even look at the opposite side. You call somebody stupid all the time, they end up believing that they're stupid, and they gravitate that way. But then when you call out greatness, when you call out goodness, when you help them to see the potential that's within them, then you equip them, you empower them to becoming just that. So this is all the more reason for couples to understand each other's bent and play to each other's strengths and interests, so that they can improve the overall well-being of their relationship, as well as foster a better union. It's sort of like how you're comfortable, you have a comfortable hand that you write with, and if somebody is trying to force you to use,
the other hand,
let's say you're a right-handed person, and it's easy, it comes naturally for you to use your right, even though you use both hands to do things, typically. But if you're trying to use your left hand to write, number one, it ends up being a scroll. But your right hand that you're used to, that is, just comes natural to you, is the same way. So we need to, help one another to write with the preferred hand and the more natural hand, and so we must remember, or rather couples must also remember, that we have a mandate to help one another fulfill potential. We'll not be doing a deep dive into the two personality types that we'll touch on today, but we'll just, sort of give an outline of these types.
You're listening to the Marriage Experience program with Ayokunle and Bosode Santos.
Okay, we'll look at two opposite categories here. One from each of the analysts who are innately introverted, and explorers who themselves are innately extroverted. Now, the MBTI uses letters to represent these personality types. First, we'll look at the INFJ, and then we'll look at the ESTP. The INFJ being the introverted, intuitive, feeling, judging, and the ESTP being the extroverted, sensing, thinking, and perceiving. So the INFJ kind of a personality are those who seek meaning and connection in ideas. They seek meaning and connection in relationships and material possessions. They would want to understand what motivates people and are insightful about others. They are conscientious and are committed to their firm values. They develop a clear vision about how best to serve the common good. They are organized, they're decisive, and they organize and decisive in implementing their vision. So these are the kind of people who, listening to the different attributes that they have, you can begin to paint a picture of who the INFJs are.
The INFJ, just to add, are just people who they work better in their own world. They resolve matters within. They don't draw energy when there's a lot of people around. They tend to prefer their own world and where they resolve things. These are the introverted people. So the second set of personality type that we are just going to touch on today, just an outline, as we said, is the ESTP. And these people are quick, They're ingenious, they're stimulating, they're alert and very outspoken. In other words, they are just the life of the party. Wherever they are, they carry sort of they are the ones who supply the energy, to to their environment, and they're resourceful in solving new and challenging problems. They're adept at generating conceptual possibilities. This is what how MBTI describes them. And they love also to analyze these concepts that they bring to the table, and they're very strategic in their thinking. So they're not only vivacious, they are also intelligent. They're highly intelligent. These ESTP kind of personality, they are good at reading other people, but then they get bored very quickly at routine. They just like things, to just keep on evolving, and they want new things, exciting things, all the time. And they will seldom do the same thing the same way. So this would be the category of people that you would call an entrepreneur, that once they set it up, they move on. They're not going to sit around trying to manage it. No, they don't do the run of the mill daily routine things. They just want something innovative, and I would imagine that Elon Musk would be that kind of a personality. And they're also very apt to turn to one new interest after another. So they are kind of always innovating and looking for the next big idea that they want to execute.
Now, this might sound like, hey, guess what? ESTP is the way to go, because there was a word that came up there, describes them as being very ingenious and being alert and all that. That doesn't mean that is what everyone should aim for.
It's just who they are.
Yeah, it's
and that like, doesn't make them better
exactly
than somebody else who is more docile.
Yes, I mean, just like having a football or soccer team, the person who scores the goal is always the star of the match. Now, that doesn't mean that everyone should become a striker, otherwise they lose. So you need people who fit into different categories. Some are front desk kind of people who everyone sees, and others are people who work in the background, but everyone is important, and every personality type is important. The most important thing is to fit into your personality type and operate within your personality type, and understand the personality type of your spouse, so you know exactly how to work with them and to manage situations.
Yeah, I mean, there's a scripture that talks about each one supplying, I've forgotten this, how that scripture goes, but, to the effect that each person is supplying what is necessary so that everyone gets the benefit of what the other person brings to the table. That's true. It's also to remember what we said about trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. I mean, that is going to cause a lot of friction, because the person is going to be acting contrary to who God made them to be. So we must, first of all, allow one another to be who God made us to be, and understand how we function because of the way that God designed us, and because of the particular gifting that God has gifted us. Every single one of this personality is important and precious and valuable to the world at large. Yeah.
That's great. So we'll continue next week to look at yet another foundational principle for establishing and building God-centered marriages. The kind of marriages that, of course, we all desire.
And probably we'll still do yet another episode on personalities
Oh
before
yes,
we move on
probably
to,
even two,
yeah,
because
before
yes,
we
because
move
there
on
are
to
a number of other. Because we look at the different personalities and then tie them up.
how they actually
how they
work
yes,
together. Yeah,
how
that would
they
be
work
good.
together.
Yeah, absolutely.
So as usual, we'd appreciate your feedback at mxperience@lidiosantos.com. These recordings are stored on YouTube. The handle is at MindExperience, at MindExperience without the E. Now we are
That's
also
experience without the E.
experience without the E. Yes.
At the beginning.
Okay, I'll take it this way: at MARRIAGEXPERIENCE.
Absolutely.
Now we're also on Apple Podcast, Spotify, Amazon Music, and everywhere you listen to your podcast.
Yeah.
So as usual, thank you very much for your time this evening. Looking forward to next week having you with us.
And if you miss Monday, there is always a replay on Wednesday.
And if you're listening to this on a Wednesday, you can do that next week, Monday as well.
Thank you so much for having us in your space and giving us the permission to be a part of your marriage journey. God bless you and have a wonderful rest of your week.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Join Ayokunle and Bossade again next week on The Marriage Experience as they bring God's truth to help you build your marriage God's way. Till then, remember, marriage is God's idea and it is
The
a good
marriage
thing.
experience.